In today's video in our Unreal Engine 4 101 course, we will be introducing the user interface. Whether you're a Unity refugee or just new to Unreal Engine 4, a few things are going to seem a little confusing at first. Today's video will fix that. We're going to go over the basics of navigating the user interface. In the following video series to come, we will continue to cover how to use Unreal Engine 4, working up towards a small playable game. Let me introduce myself, Insomnia from Unreal Tech, a division of Blender Tech, and welcome to another video. If you enjoyed or learned something, consider liking it and subscribing for more Unreal, Blender, coding, and all sorts of other CG related videos. Lastly, don't forget our motto, create your way. So let's jump right in. With a project open, whether it be a template, blank project, or an example project, it doesn't matter. Just make sure you have the same window open as me here. That is the main editor window. If you don't have this open, there's a few ways to do that. You can go File, New Project, right from the menu there, or under the Epic's game launcher, you can just hit launch Unreal Engine 4. So with our project in front of us, let's go over a few things. Let's go over the window layout first. It should look like this at stock. If it doesn't, you can always go window, reset layout. You can also save your layout once you're happy with it. And you can also turn on and off different windows. You see here, if I turn on something like statistics, a window opens, I can grab this tab and I can dock it anywhere. You notice all these little places for me to dock it means I can customize my layout however I want it, and I can close them at any time as well. This allows you to customize your layout in any way to whatever suits you. Anyways though, the stock layout. So we have over here the modes window. This has a place mode, so that allows you to place things like, say, a cube, where the player starts, trigger areas, visual effects, lights, your typical things. There's many things you can place. Then you have paint. This allows you to do some texture painting and vertice painting. We won't get into that. You have your landscape mode, which allows you to basically build landscapes with a brush. You have foliage, which allows you to do the same thing, basically paint stuff like trees and bushes. And then you have geometry editing, sometimes called BSP. So what that allows you to do is create prototype geometry by just moving vertices and lines and faces around within the editor without having to have a 3D modeling program open for prototyping. We're just going to focus on the simple place modes one, the stock one that you see. This is where you will find basic things to put into your level. For example, let's say we wanted our player to start somewhere. We would take player start, click drag and drop it anywhere in our level, just like that. Our player is now going to start right there. We can hit F to focus. You'll see it focuses right in on it. Right there is where our player is going to start. So that's just an example. You can also add something like a light. Let's say we had a point light. We could place it right by our player. As you can see, our point light is now going to be influencing the area of this little sphere. And if I hit F to focus again, you'll see it right here. These little sprites are called widgets. They just indicate that you have a light there when there's no mesh to be shown. So we have a light and a player start in our scene. I want to bring you to the window we're using right now. This is called the main viewport. This is where you will do playing to test your game in the editor. This is called Pi, or play in editor. This is where you'll drag and drop stuff. This is where you'll be doing a lot of work. Well, this is where you'll be doing all of your work for the most part in designing your levels and your game. We also have over here a world outliner. This can be thought of as the scene hierarchy in Unity. In here, we have a list of every single thing added to our level. For example, player start 2. I have selected, you can see it's an orange. That is what we just added, and it's now on our scene outliner. You'll see if I double click on the name or press F2, I can rename it. I can call it player start new or whatever you want. You're also able to make folders. If I have this selected and press the new folder button up here, it creates a new folder that holds it. I can call this the new player starting position. You can also just select your map from the very top. This will always be the top that tells you the name of the map you're in, and you can hit the new folder and it will create just a new general folder, and you can call this something, say like level lights, for example. Unreal Engine 4 allows you to organize things very easy in the World Outliner. When you have something selected, let's go down to the details panel. This is just like the properties panel in Unity. This gives you every component's data. Here we have a transform component with its details, object, rendering, input, and actor. Something that might look a little more familiar to Unity users is if I was to add something like, we'll say just a simple cube mesh. You'll see it has transform data. You see we have a component list here. You see we can add components. We can also make our own components. You see we have a static mesh renderer. We can choose a different one. We have a material. We can choose a different one. We have physics, collision, lighting, rendering, physics volume, and tags. Tags work the exact same way as in Unity. As you can see, when you hover over something, it gives you a tooltip. This is one of the best way to find out what everything means in Unreal, is just hover over it. It basically tells you what everything is and does in the editor. And in some places, like say over here where it says hold Control Alt for more, that gives you more information on it, as well as a link to documentation. Anyways, on to the next most important menu. Of course, your content browser. This is exactly the same. This is exactly the same as the project browser in Unity. This holds all of your assets that you've imported into your game that you're able to use within your game in many different ways. You'll see under the third person blueprint template that I have a folder called animations, blueprints, character, maps, and meshes. For example, we were just under meshes and we had a few different meshes we could use, like stairs, for example. As you can see, I can just drag and drop right into the level and it will snap directly onto the surface. Let's go over one thing first before we talk about that. In Unreal Engine, if you look very carefully, you'll notice that Z in blue, or Z for us Canadians, is up. This is the industry standard for a lot of modeling programs, but I know Unity uses Y up. So in Unreal Engine 4, and in most programs for that case, Z is up, X is forward, and Y is right. So you have Y, positive and minus is left and right, positive X is forward, negative X is back, positive Z is up, or negative Z is down. So something to be aware of. We have a bunch of options up here at the top. You'll see, again, if I drag and drop it in here, we have the same keys as before: W to translate, E to rotate, R to scale, and we also have the buttons up here if we want it. But again, W, E, and R is exactly the same as in Unity, and that's pretty consistent within modeling programs as well. Lastly, we have the ability to cycle between world and local space. The hotkey for that is Control tilde, tilde being the key, the console key, right beside the number 1 on your keyboard, so that if I had rotated this object in local space, if I was to move it, it would move along its rotation. But if I change that to world space, then it still moves back in world space. That's pretty basic, though, that we'll get into more later. Lastly, we have a bunch of snapping options, which are very, very useful. We have surface snapping. You see, if I enable this, that means everything will snap to its surface. So the stair will snap to this surface. If I put a cube, it will snap right onto its surface. That one's a good example. Notice how it snaps right onto its surface. Right onto the surface you're trying to drag onto. See how that snapped onto the edge of it there? This all depends on the pivot point, center point, whatever you're used to calling it. We'll turn it off. Now look at the difference. When I try to add the same thing, it doesn't snap to the surface. Next we have grid snapping. You can disable or enable it just by clicking that button right there. Now, how this works is the drop down beside it allows you to select different sizes to snap to. Now this is measured in centimeters, and one Unreal unit is 1 centimeter. One Unity unit is 1 meter or 100 centimeters. Just something to keep in mind, but that keeps it nice and easy. 1 centimeter and allows you to have powers of 10 as well. So you can see this is 1 centimeter, 5 centimeters, all the way up to 10 meters and 100 meters. You can also go into the preferences and add your own sizes. I've added some like 250, 25, 2500. You can add as many as you want. So let's change it to 500. That's 5 meters. You'll see now if I click with my leftmost button to select these stairs, and I can drag the widget to move it, you'll see it will snap in exactly 500 increments. Notice the transform location data on the right goes exactly 500 units down. In any direction, of course. And again, we can change that to anything. We can go down to 1 if we want for precision. We can go up high, and again, you can always create your own custom ones, and that'll go way off 100 meters. But you can also just disable that to get ultimate super precision down to fractions of a millimeter, down to micrometers. Anyways, next we have rotation up here. Rotation, same thing. You enable or disable rotation snapping with this button right here, and again, it's incremented in degrees, which you can also create custom ones. We have divisions of 360 and just regular ones. Again, like I said, you can create your own, but let's start with 5 degrees. So I'm going to go into rotate mode. Again, the hotkey is E, and as you see, we can just rotate it. We get this nice little compass or protractor, whatever you want to call it, and just like that, you see we can rotate it 90 degrees or any other increment. But if we want a custom amount, we just disable that and we can go down in any amount we want, just like that. Very cool. We won't get into scale grid snapping, that's a bit more complex. Lastly, you have camera speed. This is for navigating the viewport, the last thing I'm going to get to in this lesson. To move around in the viewport, hold down your right mouse button, and this allows you to look around with the camera. While you're doing this, you can use WASD to fly around, just like no clip in a first person shooter. So D to the right, A to the left, W forward, S is back, and also Q is down and E is up. So that allows you to navigate the viewport very easily. You can also hold leftmost button down to just pan left and right, or move forward, zoom in and out, so it's just kind of a basic view from whatever view you're looking at. But you can also use the arrow keys to go like that and up and down in a nice panning motion. Lastly, you have middlemost button, which pans in the other axis like so. And again, we can use the arrow keys to move in the same way. There are a few other ways to navigate, but the easiest and most common is to hold down the rightmost button and fly around with WASD, Q, and E. You can change the camera speed by clicking this button up here and toggling it from 1 to 8, 1 being very slow and 8 being extremely fast. You can also scroll your mouse wheel while you're moving to change that. You can see I'm at 8, but since I'm scrolling down, it's moving slower. If I stop scrolling, then it gets much faster. If I scroll up, just like that. So you can kind of change it on the fly, and you can get extreme or low values for more precision. Lastly, we have maximize or restore this viewport. So that gives us full screen. In this case, we got a 4-panel view. depending on your settings, but F11 will bring you into full screen in and out, just like your browser or everything else that uses F11 for full screen. We'll just go over the last few buttons. We have perspective, top, if we want to go into wireframe, side, front for super precision, of course perspective, and then we have different views: lit, unlit, wireframe. There's many in here which we won't get into today. And lastly, show. This just allows you to turn certain things off. For example, sprites, hide all. You'll notice that if I go to player start, it doesn't have a sprite anymore. If I turn them back on, sprites, show all, now we see where they are again. Lastly, this little arrow right here, pressing real time, you can see it allows real time rendering. So if you had moving clouds or particle systems, you have show stats, which needs to be enabled. You'll see on the bottom, it needs to be enabled in your preferences, but that shows you how much memory and CPU you're using. And lastly, FPS shows you the frames per second you're getting at this very moment. That can only be used when real time is checked off. If I uncheck real time, they're all unchecked. We have the field of view, which changes our preview camera's field of view. The stock is 90. And the far view plane to see how far you can view, which in this case has no effect. The last we won't really get into. Again, you see the layouts. You can have different layouts for your viewport. And so that's what this button does, and so that lets you select it there. And there's advanced settings in the settings that we'll get into in a later video. That is the basics of navigating the viewport and a few basics of Unreal Engine 4. I hope that this helped you out in getting a basic intro to learning the editor, and I hope you have some fun with it while you wait for my next video, where we start building some scripts and placing things in level and going through a few more things about Unreal Engine that are unique. So anyways, if you want to, just go File and Save All, Control S like anything else to save your project, and that's it. Your project's saved for next time. So anyways, we will see you guys next time. Thanks again for watching from the team here at Unreal Tech, a division of BlenderTech.com. If you enjoyed this video and learned something, please like it, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos. If you disliked this video for some reason, please tell us why so we can continually improve our videos based on your community input. See you next time, and remember, create your way.